So, for the next few episodes of the Weekend Devotion, we're going to be spending some time having conversations with other people. And this week, we are really excited to have Janine Campos join us. We'll catch up with where she's at right now and her journey that she's been on for the past few years, and really talking about the importance of gaining perspective. So, settle in, and I hope you really enjoy this. Bye. All right, so we are here with Janine. Say hello, Janine.
Hi, guys.
So, for those of you who don't know, Janine, would you catch up the audience on what's where you've been the last
Yeah,
couple of years?
the last couple of years. So I was serving in Ethiopia with the Peace Corps from June 2018 until it was supposed to be until until September 9th of this year. But due to the pandemic, we were notified mid-March that we had to be evacuated. So I had about a week to pack up, say my goodbyes. I actually had a project going, so I had to close that up. And within 5 days of being notified, we were on a plane and back to the US, traveling through the pandemic. And then, so I decided to come to Jacksonville. So, like in Palm Beach, I lived with my mom and grandma, and I did not want to expose them since I was being exposed through the travel to possible pandemic. And I've just been living in Jacksonville with my sister, Jacqueline, ever since.
Well, that's very nice of you not to expose Glenda.
Yeah, I don't
We
think
like
she would have
Glenda.
been, I think she would have locked me out.
That's
It's okay.
awesome. So the reason, the, just so everybody knows, Janine already knows this. Um, Facebook is often a dumpster fire and often is good. It's kind of there's no middle ground. And Janine shared something on Facebook a few weeks, maybe about a week or so ago, that it resonated with me. And so since I do the videos, like, well, that's what matters. It resonated with me. And I it brought up something about basically about getting perspective on racial issues. Um, and real quick, what I just want to do is I want to just show you guys the post that she shared, not her post, but the link that she shared. It was called the Antiracial Reading List, and I'll link this. It's from the New York Times, and I'll link this in the description for the video. But it's just about, if you are a reader, here are some resources you can look at to get some perspective on racial inequality in America. It's
Yeah.
a wide range from fiction to nonfiction. I will be honest, I've only read one of those, and it was probably in middle school. Their Eyes Were Watching God. At some point, I read that, so
Mhm.
it intrigued me. So, Janine, what was your reasoning behind sharing that?
So actually, I started, I guess, before the Peace Corps. I've been in a lot of sociology classes, and even like in high school, we read books that were. I remember one that was like "The Lies My Teacher Told Me," and it was just about learning how a lot of the education we receive is biased, and it's important to get different perspectives on things. And more recently, the man who shared that story, Ibram Kendi, he's written several books. One I know is definitely for free on Spotify right now, called Stamped from the Beginning, and he also wrote How to Be an Anti-Racist. I'm sorry, he was a co-author for Stamped from the Beginning.
Okay.
um, and it's just kind of learning to educate yourself that your education has been skewed, like, from the beginning. And so taking that into consideration, like, what have you missed? And like, it gives you the opportunity to see that, like, there is a ton of white privilege. Like, if you are white, you are privileged, and there is systemic racism. And it's important to educate, not well, it's important to start with educating ourselves so that we can make a difference.
Yeah,
I
and
think that's the first step in finding justice.
yes, I something you just said there struck with me about, the education we receive is a bit skewed. Um, and I went to college and I'm a history major, right? So
Hmm.
you think I would have read more on this issue dealing with America. And, in high school, I learned, your basic tenets of the civil rights movement. You learn about Rosa Parks, and you learn about Martin Luther King, and you might hear a little bit about Malcolm X, but not as much because he's a little more controversial. But I've learned stuff in the past few months where just things pop up, and something that an author that I'd never heard of, and it's really embarrassing, is James Baldwin. And
Right.
I had never even heard of him. And after watching a documentary on him and listening to so many things, like now it's all over YouTube, some of his debates and his speeches,
Right.
I can't believe that I never heard of him. And
Right.
so at one point I was very upset that I was never taught this. Then another point, like, but I'm an adult. I'm 43. Like, I
Right.
can't blame my high school, middle school, college teachers for not telling me about this. At some point,
Right.
I've got to take a little ownership of it.
Yeah. Yeah. I always think of like, I don't know how accurate this is or like if it makes any sense to anyone else, but like our education is kind of like the mama bird who like feeds her babies.
Okay.
Like those babies trust the mom. They are taking whatever she's going to give them. And
Hmm.
that's like how we received our education. But like it was in the mom's interest to feed her babies. Like you keep the genetics going. That's kind of as far as I've thought this through. But like we have to that like we have so much trust in our education system that it is like giving us everything we need that a lot of times we don't go beyond that. Like
Right.
we are not baby birds who are dependent on just like feed me my education. We are intelligent beings and we can go out and seek more. Does that make
Yes.
sense?
It makes a lot of sense because those little baby birds don't do anything for themselves. They're completely reliant
Right.
on their mother.
Yeah.
And if they're not being fed the right thing, then yeah.
Right. A lot of our education has been like whitewashed and skewed. So it's important for us to seek out more.
Yes, I agree. Now, I I don't read as much as I used to. I'll be very
Okay.
honest. But luckily, we live in the age of YouTube, and we live in
Me
the age
too.
of Netflix and Hulu and Amazon Prime.
Audiobooks.
Audiobooks, yes, they're amazing. Um, I don't know how you've been looking at it, but
Hmm.
I said this to you through text, but I tell my middle schoolers this, or even my high schoolers in the youth group,
Hmm.
is if I look at what YouTube is suggesting you watch, that tells me a lot about what you're spending your time doing.
Yeah.
And I know the more that I've spent time on YouTube going through and listening to things, more of that starts to fill up with other voices and other people that I can take 5 minutes and listen to an excerpt of something.
Yeah.
And what were you were saying something to me earlier about TED Talks?
Yeah, I've listened to probably too many in the last couple months, but
Yeah.
I have several TED Talks that I'm very willing to. I'll give you the link to. Some are TED Talks, and I've got other like short YouTube videos that are I'd be happy to share that kind of give a little more perspective, teach a little bit, and honestly, most of them encourage additional education, kind of some self-exploration that needs to be done.
Great. Well, thank you for that and ahead of time. And
Absolutely.
yeah, again, when I get those, I'll link a couple of them in the description for the
Yeah.
video. Um, just to kind of sum up, Janine,
Hmm.
why should people endeavor to learn more? To give it a final thought.
I mean, you can go through life completely uneducated and ignorant if you want, but
Hmm.
it's not really a great way to live. Especially as Christians, like there is injustice happening all around us. There are things that we need to take a stand and do something about. And if you are only receiving the education that is given to you, you're missing out on a lot. And you're complicit in what is happening. So you need to take a stand. You need to understand what you believe in. Like I don't know if Hamilton is still popular, but
It is.
like if
I teach seventh grade American history, and we bring in some of the music from that, and the kids absolutely love it. So
yeah, and it's like if you stand for nothing, what do you fall for or something? I
yeah,
don't know. I should have
it is
brought it up if I don't know how to quote it.
treatise
And
on
I know
murder.
it's
Yeah,
from other things as well, but come on guys, like you have this opportunity. Honestly, like why not now? Why not try?
great. I completely agree, and um, I just want to thank you, Janine, for sharing your opinion. You've been away from the youth group long enough and not a lot of kids will recognize you. But that doesn't matter. It does, just because they may not recognize you doesn't mean you don't have a valid point and a valid voice.
Thanks.
So I appreciate you coming on today, and
My pleasure.
I hope that people will watch this, and I hope that more people will spend their summer either reading a little bit or listening to an audiobook or watching some of the great movies that, sidetracking, Netflix and Amazon Prime are putting out some free, like they're removing rental fees from some movies. So if you've got it, it's a good place to start.
Check them out. Absolutely.
All right. Well, have a great weekend. Thank you for your time today, and
my pleasure.
All the best.
You too. Bye.